Chapter 17 11 Days Until Christmas. Cammy picked at the grilled cheese on her plate in front of her, if you could call it that. She'd tried to make lunch, but ended up with a charred crisp of a sandwich. She could hear her grandmother in the other room chatting on the phone with her aunt about Willa's latest accomplishment. Worst of all, Cammy couldn't stop thinking about what had happened with Lucy, and she had no idea how to apologize without making Lucy feel even worse. A moment later, her grandmother popped her head in. "I need to pick up a few things at the grocery," her grandmother said. "Come along and keep me company." The last thing Cammy felt like doing was heading out into the crowded market, but she knew her grandmother needed help with the heavy bags of food. Maybe she could finally get something right this weekend. So she headed downstairs, put on her boots, and got in her grandmother's ancient Honda. "You're awfully quiet," her grandmother said as she backed the car down the driveway. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," Cammy said. "I just have a lot of homework." "Still taking that break from the violin?" her grandmother asked. Cammy's chest tightened. Yeah," she said. She never lied to her grandmother, and you could maybe argue that this wasn't a complete lie. Still, it was stretching the truth till it felt like something else entirely. But Cammy wanted to tell her grandmother the big change she had made when it was actually worth talking about, when she had used her new free time to do something truly Willa-worthy, and so far that had not happened. Her grandmother glanced at her for a moment, and Cammy steeled herself for more questions, but her grandmother stayed quiet. She wouldn't have believed it was possible, but now Cammy felt even worse. Her grandmother had said nothing about missing hearing her play, or how Cammy needed to prepare for the Christmas gala. It was almost as though she were glad Cammy wasn't playing, which shouldn't have been a surprise considering the conversation she had had with Willa's mom, but still hit Cammy like a sharp jab at the soft part of her belly. The grocery store was crowded and the lights felt harsh. Cammy steered the cart as her grandmother filled it up with pasta, juice, and bread. There was a long line at the meat counter, and Cammy leaned on the cart as her grandmother chatted with a church friend waiting in front of them. But then she saw something that made her stand up straight. Mrs. Von Wolf, the tiny old lady huffing as she pushed a cart filled to the brim with food. Behind her came her husband, barely an inch taller and pushing a cart piled even higher, if that was possible. There was no way they were going to eat all that food. They had to be buying it for someone else, possibly someone who had made a wish on the angel tree. Cammy crept up behind them to see what was in their carts. Both were piled high with fruity frosted crunch cereal, chocolate granola bars, boxes of macaroni and cheese, and several big bottles of fruit punch, all food a 10-year-old would like, not an elderly couple. "So we'll just box this up and get it to the Naylor's house when Ed Pink delivers their tree at 7, Mr. Von Wolf was saying, running a hand through his sparse white hair. The Naylors lived on the edge of town, and Mr. Naylor had been out of work for almost a year. Cammy knew the only way they could afford Christmas for their 3 young kids was with a little help from the angel tree. "Perfect," his wife said. "We just need to grab some staples for the parents, and I think we're set." "And you said Alma Sanchez is taking care of the gifts?" Mr. Von Wolf asked as they headed down the aisle. Cammy wasn't tired or low anymore. This was a clue, and a fantastic one at that. The Von Wolfs were helping out with an important wish, and they were also obviously the ones organizing it. After all, how else could they know that Mr. Pink was delivering the tree, and Alma Sanchez was taking care of the gifts? Cammy couldn't wait to call Joe, Lucy, and Max the second she got home to tell them they had new prime candidates for GB.